Visualization is kind of like a hallucination. We're seeing something in our mind's eye, we're hearing something, we're visualizing by hearing it, or we're visualizing it by feeling our body in that future space. So regarding visualization and imagination, I want to go over three things. The first thing is that you can change. We get 700 new neurons every single day. Yes, the cell turnover for the neuron is a lot slower than other cells in our body, like bones reproduce faster, ligaments, muscles, tendons, all that turns over faster than neurons. Yes, neurons are slow, but we can change our minds. By the time we're 50, our bodies have replaced all of the neurons that we were born with. We can improve in this area if we choose to focus on it, if we choose to learn, and if we get rid of negative self-talk around learning in this area. Second thing I want to talk about is the creative mindset. We obviously need the creative mind to turn on to imagine and visualize. So how exactly do we do that? Third thing I want to talk about is how do we use visualization and imagination to design our life? We can design our lives. We can't control everything. That's not the point. Life is a blank canvas, and we get to choose as adults what we want to focus on and what our goals are going to be. And how exactly do we do that? And how does imagination and visualization help us do that? We start with developing our imagination and our clarity of thought. If we improve our focus, we're going to improve our ability to visualize. If we improve our ability to visualize, we're going to improve our imagination and our ability to think of all of our options available to us. I learned from sociology to look out into the culture to come up with ideas around the definition of words. And one way that I do this is I Google a topic like imagination or visualization, because my question is, what is the definition of imagination and visualization? What do people think of in our culture when they think of imagination and visualization? Or we can adjust the definition to make sense for what we're applying the word to for the context, right? So one of the first quotes that came up regarding imagination and visualization was from Albert Einstein. Logic will get you from A to Z. Imagination will get you everywhere. Imagination is the ability to form a picture in your mind of something that you have not seen or experienced. Another one from Albert Einstein. Your imagination is your preview to your life's coming attractions. Here's one from Michael Corpus. The power of the imagination makes us infinite. The imagination. We live in both the visible and invisible worlds. One is what we see, the other is what we imagine, which influences what we see. Okay, so there's different ways to visualize. And I did not realize this. I knew that there were different categories for learning. So we've got kinesthetic, auditory, and visual learners. Well, it turns out that those three categories ring true in visualization as well. And if you are a kinesthetic learner, it is likely that you're a kinesthetic visualizer. If you're an auditory learner, you're probably an auditory visualizer. If you're a visual learner, you're probably a visual visualizer. And the reason this blew my mind is because so much of the language around visualization has to do with imagery in the mind's eye and imagination. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing. And here I'm going to define it as that. It is something completely separate. Visualization and your ability to imagine yourself and your options in your life and your options at every given moment is you're going to be dominant in one of these categories. So everyone has a dominant or a tendency You're kinesthetic, visual, or auditory. Kinesthetics feel physical sensations and movements. That's how they learn. Visual is seeing images or words, and auditory is hearing music and hearing words. There's lots of examples of quizzes online. I just pulled one that was really simple and had 5 questions. When choosing a book to read for fun, what type would you pick? A book with lots of pictures in it. B, a book with lots of words in it. Or C, a book with lots of word searches or crossword puzzles. In high school, how would you usually study for a test? Read the book or your notes and review pictures or charts. B, had someone ask you questions that you could answer out loud. C, made up index cards to review. I won't read all of the questions here, but if you answered mostly A, you are a visual learner. If you answered mostly B, you're an auditory learner. If you answered mostly C, you're a kinesthetic learner. So as we get into the creative mindset, we want to have a balanced mind. We want to clear our calendars, clear the clutter and the chatter in our minds, and we want to have clear emotions. That is what I mean by a balanced mind. Which brings me to my next point, which is focus. In order to visualize, we have to clear the chatter in our minds, which means that we have to work on focusing. And if we can't focus, we can't visualize. So how do we improve focus? Now, when we get into looking at opening up the creative mind, we're going to be weighted over here. So this illustration on the right-hand side is right brain focus. On the left-hand side is left brain focus. There are weak tendencies on the right side of the brain if you're too right-brained, and then there's weak tendencies on the left side of the brain if you're over emphasizing the left side of the brain. So when I'm talking about balancing the mind, this is a little bit about what I'm talking about. Now, this first part I stole from Mark Passio. I called this picture or this graph the learning point because it's very powerful and very focused when you are following this process and you're right in the middle, you're right in between open-mindedness and critical thought, and you're focused and you're getting through the material and using the material with action and gaining experience and therefore gaining wisdom in the topic and in the vein in which you're studying. But that doesn't always happen all at once. We have different people. We have different brains. Everybody works at a different pace. You might have a Ferrari and you might be able to go 200 miles an hour towards your destination and go for an hour straight floored and get through everything. Where other people, maybe like me, we're going off road and we're making a pit stop and I'm going the longer way to avoid traffic, and I pull over and get coffee and then I got to stop and pee because I drank too much coffee, so it's okay to pull over and take a break. So this is, I believe it's called the diffusion phase. Again, I forget what book that is. I read that. But I believe it's called the diffusion phase. So you've got the learning point, which is super focused work where you're in a perfectly balanced mind for learning. You're focusing, you're gathering knowledge. As you get knowledge, you take action. And with action, you gain wisdom and experience. That's all great. But we need to take breaks, and these are outside of the learning point, although they are still super important, because when we're sleeping, taking our walks, working out, writing, playing music, singing, working with clay, painting, meditating, our subconscious is working. So I know some of us that tend to be obsessive and can have a tendency towards workaholics. We may think, okay, I'm not in the learning point. I'm not in this highly productive state. Therefore, I'm not moving towards my goal. And we can start freaking out if we're not focused and gaining knowledge and taking action and gaining that wisdom and experience in every single moment. I created this to show myself, hey, even when we are outside of this learning point here, our subconscious is working on the problem. Even as we meditate, as we are doing art, as we're having a conversation with a friend, as we're painting, as we're writing, our subconscious, or even sleeping, our subconscious is working on that problem. So we make it to a point in the learning point where we are stuck, and that's time to walk away. Like if you keep hitting a brick wall, yeah, there's the times where you will through it and you push through it, and find a stopping point and take that walk around the block. Go look at the trees and sit on the ground cross-legged and just look at the sky. I mean, sometimes I just go out in my garden, go water my garden. These are all can be productive as well. And it's about finding that balance. Obviously, you don't want to procrastinate or be lazy and use it as an excuse all the time. But also, I'm just saying that there is value in taking those diffusion breaks and allowing the subconscious and the creative mind to work on projects in the background. So your brain's still working on the problem in the background, even though you're gardening or doing something else, and you're not actively working on solving your problem or actively working on your project. So we are going to be weighted on this side over here for the first phase of this process. And then we're going to come over here to the critical thinking later in this process of visualization and designing our life. So again, in the first phase, we need to eliminate as much of the critical mind and the R complex as possible. And again, it's not to say it's not important. It is absolutely imperative to have the critical mind come in. It's just reserved for a later portion of the process. I know a lot of people are going to think I'm a weirdo for always bringing up imagery, but this helps me shift into the creative mindset. I like to look at artwork. I like to look at imagery. I like to look at colorful pictures and colors and change my environment. These are strategies that I use to turn on my creative mindset. Today, I'm choosing this picture. It's an illustration of a tree whose leaves and branches are shaped like a brain. And you can see the little face here on the tree, and all around the tree are branches. I know a lot of people are going to think that this is creepy. No, it's not creepy. It is a pomegranate. And pomegranates are super interesting to me because they have a lot of spiritual undertones associated with them in symbolism. And they represent fruit that is hard to get. You have to really work for the fruit. To get the sweetness of the fruit, you have to work hard to get it. And that is why it is associated with spiritualization. Spiritualization and self-work is not easy. It takes a lot of effort. The next thing I learned about visualization is that visualization doesn't have to be an image in the mind's eye. And I didn't even learn that I was a kinesthetic learner until I was in college. And then I didn't really know how to use it to my advantage to pass tests until I was out of college. I actually was studying for my insurance license exam, and I was failing every single practice test. And my exam had come, the day of my exam had come, and I drove all the way down to LA, sweating, dreading this test, and I got there several hours early, wanting to brush up on the questions. I paced around the building, and as I was pacing around the building, I came across this woman who had index cards, and she said, "Hey, will you help me study? I've got these index cards. I do really well with index cards." I thought, okay, sure. So I sit down with her, and I go through these index cards, and I started memorizing the answers so easily. And I spent maybe an hour, maybe a half an hour with her. And I swear that's the only reason I passed that test, because I am a kinesthetic learner and we tend to do well with index cards. I didn't know that until I had gotten through all of my elementary school, secondary school, primary school, high school, college, and university. I didn't know. I always just thought I was not smart. I thought I was not good at tests. I thought it was difficult. I do have a difficult time learning. Well, I just thought I was stupid. I didn't know that I just learned differently than my friends. And same thing happened to me with visualization. I thought, oh, because I'm not seeing things very clearly in my mind's eye, I'm just not a good visualizer. Well, that's not true. I'm just a kinesthetic visualizer. So that was the first thing that really blew my mind in looking at all of this. Clarity and image in the mind's eye is different than verbalizing your vision. It sounds like stating the obvious to some, but I think it needs to be said because people like me really struggled with this. Okay, I struggled with this. And I thought that I just had bad ideas. I would explain my idea to someone else and they either wouldn't really understand or they probably didn't really understand what I was trying to say. And I had a really hard time selling my idea to someone else because it was somewhat abstract, me being a kinesthetic visualizer, and other people just didn't get it. Or maybe I was talking to a visual visualizer and they needed to see it in an image or a video, something along those lines. Or maybe I had an auditory person. If I would have been explaining it to a kinesthetic person, they might have got it, but maybe I was explaining it to an auditory or a visual person, right? So just because you have an idea that excites you, that's clear in your mind's eye or clear in your vision, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do a good job articulating that to another person. And I want to talk about clarity of thought and communication and the process that I have used to help me develop my ideas and protect my ideas. So let's get into it. At any given moment, we have infinite possibilities. We have infinite options. And in this graph, I show that the past is pretty much linear. It's done. It's been put to bed. And in this moment, we have infinite possibilities. And even if you just think of 3 possibilities in that one moment, and then 3 in the next, and 3 in the next, and so on, you can see that this fans out pretty quickly. In the 3 options, I could go in the backyard and pick a flower. I could go in the next room and hug my dog, or I could run out my front door, yelling down the street, waving my arms violently in the air like a crazy person. These are just 3 random possibilities that I can think of in this one moment. And there are certainly more. So this shows that we truly have infinite possibilities at every present moment. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can think of infinite possibilities. You're only aware of the possibilities that you think are available to you in any moment. So there are certainly some limiting belief systems that you probably have around your possibilities in this moment. And using a practice like visualization will help you develop and come up with new ideas, new possibilities, new opportunities, new ways of doing things for yourself so that you can change your life and design your life. Well, it turns out the best way to improve focus is meditation. I really tried to avoid this. I know no one wants to hear that. I didn't want to hear it either. But meditation is the single best way to improve your focus. Now, I am a kinesthetic person, and I am always trying to find new ways, different ways of approaching learning and visualization and self-improvement because I find that I learn differently than most people. So I automatically think there's got to be a different way for people like me. There's got to be a different way than just meditating. And there really isn't. However, one thing that you can do in which you're kind of meditating and you're working on focus and visualization is art. So I don't exactly remember where I read this, but it came from a study. And what they had the people do is look at I don't remember if it was a bowl of fruit, but they looked at an object, and the goal was for the members of the study to hold the vision of the object in the mind's eye and notice all of the detail and not think of anything else other than that object in their mind's eye. And what people observed was that the chatter of the mind starts coming in. And the longer that you can hold the object in the mind's eye without chatter, the better focus you have. And the more people practice this, the better focus they achieved. My practical mind, I see killing multiple birds with one stone. By bringing in a drawing practice, you can not only improve focus, but also improve visualization in the mind's eye. If you've ever watched an artist, they look at, let's say, the bowl of fruit, and then they take their pen to paper or pencil to paper and draw it here. Now, you'll notice some artists have to do this, look, 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 look. They're constantly looking back and forth. That is an artist who probably lacks some focus and needs to work on it. Other artists look and draw for quite a while. And those artists probably have better focus and better visual development in their mind's eye. So my suggestion to pretty much everyone out there is going to be take an art class or come up with some sort of art or drawing practice. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, I'm not artistic, I'm not creative, I can only draw stick figures. That is your negative self-talk. It's BS. It's not true. If you can write your name, you can have a drawing practice. Everyone has the ability to draw. When I began practicing art again, what I did is I went to Michael's or a local art store and I bought 10 to 20 different colors, just colors and mediums that were interesting to me and that I found to be beautiful. And I went home and I meshed and molded those colors and textures together. And that was what I did. I wasn't drawing a particular picture. I was using color and texture that I find interesting because I'm kinesthetic, but I digress. And that was my art therapy. Everyone has a different vision. Art is not perfect. I know people think that it has to be perfect, and it does not have to be perfect. You can draw. You can be an artist. You are a creator. Children that can't even talk yet make art. You as an adult can make art. The single best way to improve creativity is to have an artistic practice. So many art classes at your local junior college. They've got perspective classes. I took a mural class at a junior college. There are so many art classes. There's also lots of YouTube videos and lots of how-to videos and lots of blogs. And there's tons of free information on how to draw X, Y, or Z. And find your own style and your own likings and just remember that art is not meant to be perfect, that everyone has a different perspective and a different taste, and that's what makes art art. Now that we have talked about how to visualize, how to improve the visualization, and everybody has a different dominance. We might be auditory, we might be visual, we might be kinesthetic. So now we're aware that everybody is different. We can free ourselves and allow ourselves to visualize in the way that works best for our own minds. We also can work on focusing. Focusing and improving our focus will therefore improve our ability to visualize. Doing some sort of an art project on a consistent basis, whether it's 5 minutes a day or taking an art class once a week, having some sort of a creative practice on a regular basis will improve our imagination and therefore improve our focus and our visualization. We've been working on our imagination, we've gotten a new idea, it's brand new to us, and we want to start sharing it with people, but we need to hold tight. You need to wait. I know it's really hard when you're super excited, but we need to go through a quick process together. This could take a day or perhaps a week. I would lean towards at least a week before you start sharing it with anybody else. I have learning disabilities, or had learning disabilities, or been working on my learning disabilities. I am not good at writing. I have not ever really been that great at reading, and I try to find other ways of getting around this. And when I looked, this was the way. So if you want to take your vision and you want to gain clarity of thought around your new idea that you have imagined for yourself or for your business or for a book, a song, whatever it is, you have to gain clarity enough to communicate it to another person. You do have to go through a writing process. The only way, the best way to gain clarity of thought is through writing. But let's go through this together. Again, I don't want to say this is the only way, but this is pretty much, I believe, the most efficient way. So writing is documenting and observing your thoughts. I can sit here and talk to myself and chatter in my own mind and observe my thoughts. That's often what I do. When you are writing, it's an active way of documenting and observing your thoughts in the 3D space. It makes your thought a thing that you can sit and observe from multiple angles. And you can go back and review it later as well. So the next step would be make a list. As we gain clarity of thought, we're going to want to think about our idea and come up with keywords around it. One really cool way of doing this is to create an A to Z list. Piece of paper, you write A through Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on, all the way to Z, and write words that come to mind that are related to your idea. The next thing you do is you journal about your idea every day. Do this for at least 7 days and use this in conjunction with your keywords and your A to Z list. After the 7 days, you're going to go through all your journal writings about your new idea and your keywords list and your A to Z list, and you're going to rewrite it. I've used these. I've got binders all over the damn place. You can compile it. I like putting different subjects in different binders so that they're compartmentalized to keep them organized. Is a great way to go about it, in my opinion. Rereading your journal and your writing. So write your journal for 7 days, you do your A to Z list, you do your keywords list, you rewrite it all out, whether you want to type it, make it real nice and clean for yourself. It would probably be a great idea to do that as well. And when you're done, you start asking yourself questions about your own idea. Okay, you do this with yourself first before you take it to anybody else. You do the W's: who, what, why, when, and how. Those are the main questions, and more if you can think of more. Okay, so the critical mind is starting to creep in here. And you may have had some critical thoughts during the journaling phase. I've certainly done that. I'm scared shitless. What am I doing? This is a bad idea. You know, you might have had that during your journaling. So you ask yourself questions about the idea that you wish to communicate to others. Next is you go to a friend, a close friend or family member that you trust, and you let them know, hey, I need softball questions. I'm not ready for criticism yet. This is not the time to criticize. This is the time to ask questions. The who, what, why, when, how is a great place to start. Again, and they can ask follow-up questions. So the difference between a question and a criticism, we'll go over that. So you go to your friend, you say, only questions, no criticism. So for example, that would be, when are you going to do this? And your answer is 6 months. And your friend would go, isn't that too soon? Yeah, that's a question, but that's still a criticism. You can say, oh, that's interesting. How are you going to do it? And what's your plan to get it done in 6 months? Oh, that's interesting. You know, there's a difference between criticizing and developing. Hopefully you heard the difference there. After you've gone through your question phase with your non-super critical friend and your softball friend, you're going to want to have a conversation with a friend, either a new friend or a different friend. So you might want to start with someone that's like a 5 on the critical scale, and then take it to a 6, and then take it to a 7 before you take it right to a 10. I wouldn't take it right to a 10 critical mind right away. That's just me, but maybe you've developed your idea enough to where you feel that you can defend it and sell it to someone else, because that's really what you're doing. You're developing your sales pitch to others, because in order to get help and to get buy-in for your idea, you're going to have to kind of develop your own sales pitch. Not only to you got to develop it for yourself first, because if you don't develop the sales pitch to yourself, as soon as you get a criticism from someone else, you're going to be like, yeah, that is a dumb idea, and just scrap it. So in order to follow through on this new idea, if you're really excited about it and you really know it's going to change your life or make this huge impact, you're going to really want to develop that sales pitch for yourself. And you're really going to want to develop that conviction. So you yourself have to have conviction in your own idea, in your own self, before you can really defend it to someone else. So again, as a recap, we're writing. Writing is documenting and observing our thoughts. 2, we're making a list, a keywords list, an A to Z list. Next, we're journaling about our new idea for 7 days. Then on the 8th day, we're rewriting our journals and our lists in a clear and concise way, because we all know our notes and our journals are messy. Next, you ask yourself questions about your own idea and that idea you wish to communicate to others. Then you have a conversation with a friend, and you have a friend ask softball questions. The very last step is the critical phase, okay, the criticism phase. So next, I want to talk about communication. So we start with developing our imagination and our clarity of thought. If we improve our focus, we're going to improve our ability to visualize. If we improve our ability to visualize, we're going to improve our imagination and our ability to think of all of our options available to us and work through any limiting beliefs that we have or negative emotions we have about ourselves and all of that head trash. We are going to develop our idea. We're going to get clarity of thought. We're going to go through our beautiful process that I laid out to start to develop it. And we're going to hold off on critiquing until the very end of that process. Next, we have to communicate with someone else. So we already started this in the clarity of thought phase, but I just want to drive home some information about communication and just some food for thought around communication. So just some real brief points about communication. The number one thing with humans is going to be verbal. Animals have a lot of body language. We too have a lot of body language, but verbal communication is going to be number one. You can say goggly goop in a very passionate way, and some people are going to listen to you, but there's going to be very much fewer that are going to listen to you unless you have not only conviction in your tone, but also conviction in your words and your ability to articulate your idea in a clear, concise way. And of course, tone and voice and enunciation and volume is very important as well. Projection is very important. So context is going to be super important in voice, storytelling, and clarity of thought. So as we work on our tonality, we'll enhance our communication skills with our idea. So that is the very last thing, in my opinion, that we develop, and then developing some sort of story and thinking of stories around our idea. It could be how our idea came to us. It could be how our idea has helped others, like testimonials. So you start, maybe your new idea is to transform someone's life through diet and exercise. So you use your tools and resources and the materials that you've developed to help someone else transform their life. Well, if it works, then you get a story from your free customer and you can share that with other people. Your tonality and your story is really going to help the impact of your new idea and help develop your new idea and prove that your new idea works in the 3D world, and developing your story around how you came up with the idea, why you came up with the idea, any problems that your idea solves. All of these stories, positive and negative. So coming up with a negative story as well as positive stories will help develop your idea as well, and help you communicate with others and help you overcome any objections that come on later. So there's a ton that I could say about communication. There's a ton more to this. I might get into more of it at a later time, but I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. Okay, well, I'm going to put a bow on it there. There's a lot more I could go into with communication, but I think that's a nice place to stop. If you found this information useful, please share it with someone else. I hope you found it useful. Please like and subscribe. Comment down below. When you subscribe, hit the bell so you know every time I release a video. Share it with someone else or share it on your social media, and I will talk to you next time.